So hey guys, welcome back to New Digs, and I am currently in equestrian mode here with Monty. This is one of Jill's dog, Monty. This is one of his favorite things, and we are outside. Yes. We are outside. Yes. Finally, it's our first video that we can shoot outside.
Yeah, it's April, and there's starting to be things to do. So we're going to talk about 5 jobs you can do in April.
Yeah.
In your garden. And besides just sort of generally starting to clean up a little bit. I mean, I think that's sort of the first job.
Yeah, I would say so. And also just ogling things. I mean, I spend a lot of time, and I know you do too, prowling around and looking for the tiniest little, effervescence of green.
Signs of life.
Yeah, that something's coming up.
Yeah.
And among the things in your garden that are coming up, if you watched our videos from the fall, Jill planted garlic and shallots here, and those are coming up beautifully in the raised beds.
Right.
So it's fun to just see things starting to come back to life.
Right. And I've got a few things started in the cold frames, which is a little bit of a cheat because I know most people don't have a cold frame, but
yeah, how wonderful.
So the beginnings of April, April is a great time to get a whole lot of stuff done. So first thing is just sort of tidying up in general.
Yeah.
And I try not to do too much tidying up too soon, just because you want to have a few warm days to let all the pollinators do their thing and wake up and get out and everything. So I sort of start small, close to the house, and I kind of let the fringes of the garden kind of go for a little bit longer, but you just got to clean up where you need to get some work done. So,
and that's a good plan anyway, because then if you start on the outskirts and then you sort of lose your momentum, you don't have anything close by to sort of reward yourself that you got something done. So I think starting by the house and cleaning outward is a really good technique.
And job number 2 for the garden is I like to start the peas pretty early.
Yep.
You've started yours too.
Yeah, they used to say that you should start your peas around St. Patrick's Day. Maybe
if you live like closer to down towards New York City, if you live like in Westchester,
in our old digs,
you could kind of get away with that. That's a little premature for up here, but now is a really great time to start your peas, I think.
And you soaked them. I know, because peas are a large seed, and sometimes with large seeds, it's good to soak them in water overnight just to help the outer coating.
Warm water for at least an hour, if not overnight. I ended up soaking mine for 2 days because we had bad weather. I started soaking them, and then suddenly it rained for 2 days, so I just didn't get them in anywhere. But that'll be fine.
Yep.
But yeah, you want to soak them a little bit. And it's nice if you have it to use a pea inoculant when you plant them, because you get much bigger harvest if you do that. So but it's just a little something you sprinkle on the peas, and it helps them fix nitrogen and produce a big crop. So, so that's easy to do. And also when you plant your peas, the way I do it is the very kind of old-fashioned British way. As I put pea sticks in. I go around the yard and find all sorts of fallen branches and things, and I sort of form this sort of a little bit Blair Witchy kind of.
I was just gonna say, yours looks like a lovely British woven hedge row, and if I did it, it would look like Blair Witch.
Sometimes it comes out more Blair Witch than others, but
cute.
But just sticking some branches in. And then you plant a double row of the peas underneath, and they grow up and they cover this, and it sort of becomes like a nice sturdy thing. And I know there's a lot of ash trees in our area, and ash is a really good one to use because it's got kind of a knobby kind of thing, and it's easier for the peas to grow up. So
cool.
So planting your peas, that's a really good thing to do around this time of year.
Yep.
Another good job for planting, for doing in April is starting potatoes.
Okay.
And
I love growing potatoes in the garden. I don't know what it is.
They're so yummy. They're very underrated plants.
I agree.
People always talk about homegrown tomatoes, but homegrown potatoes are so good.
Yeah.
But it's still just a little early to get them in the ground for us, but it isn't too early to start to chit them, which is to take your seed potatoes and you put them in a sunny windowsill, someplace cool but sunny, and
Okay.
and they get to sprout, and it could
Okay.
be anywhere from like a little tiny sprout to, I've planted things that have had quite substantial sprouts on it, just depending on when it's good to get them out in the ground. I mean, sometimes they go a little longer than you plan, just because, like we said, bad weather or
Yeah.
something. But yeah, you can get them sprouting inside, and then get them in the ground, and they'll be off and running. I mean,
Do you have to? I know you can buy seed potatoes. Do you have to do that, or can we use grocery store potatoes? Can you use? Because
Well-
sometimes are they treated with anything? I mean,
well,
is that an
last
issue?
year I did a combination of seed potatoes and grocery store potatoes, because we were in the pandemic and it was hard to get the seed
Right.
potatoes, and it worked.
Okay.
But there's whenever you use something from the grocery store, it's sort of, there's no guarantee. You don't know if it's been treated with something to
Right.
make it not sprout, or
But I mean, sometimes if you keep a potato in the kitchen too long, you'll see the little. And I'm always thinking to myself, I wonder if I could just plant that. And I guess the answer is, yeah, give it a try.
if you have room in your garden, give it a try.
Cool. So potatoes, and that's something we'll be doing once the soil can be worked, and we'll talk about that in a sec.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
okay, so peas, potatoes.
And then the next job is start to get things in the ground direct sow.
Okay,
And
and that's the exciting. I love that.
Yeah, and it's, the soil is looking a little wet right now, but I am going to I think in the next couple of days it's going to be much warmer. It's going to dry out. So I think that I'll be doing kale, carrots,
Radish, leeks, and direct
spinach.
Spinach. So
Yeah.
when we say direct seed, this is where you basically you're this is what you think of when you think of vegetable gardening. That you have your raised beds or your vegetable garden, and you're putting the seeds directly in the soil and covering them up, and then watching them grow, as opposed to starting them inside in seed trays or all of that. So these things that can be direct seeded, they're usually cold weather crops. They're going to be things like leafy vegetables for the most part,
Mhm.
things that don't need to produce a flower to fruit, like a tomato, an eggplant. It's still too early for those, and those aren't going to go in. You're starting to maybe see some of that stuff in garden centers, but it's too early to plant them here in the Northwest corner.
Outside.
Yeah, outside.
And that could be flowers too. I mean,
True.
there's some seeds you can do outside now.
Yeah.
Look at their seed pack. They'll
Yeah.
they'll tell you what you can do. But like poppies,
Yep.
Forage, nicotiana, some things like that, you can direct sow out in your garden once you have it kind of all tidied up and everything.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and do that.
And we talked in our seed video about the last frost-free date. Here, to be safe, we call it Memorial Day. Could be as early as middle of May, but you want to, it'll say like safe to sow outside 4 weeks before last frost-free date, and that's about where we are.
Watch your forecast, because I was just looking at photos from last year. Last year on what did Bill say it was? May 19th, we had snow last year.
Yeah.
So
And if something like that happens, that's just nature. There's nothing you can do about it. That's why these dates, frost-free dates, first date the soil can be worked, they're really relative. It's just a guideline.
right. So just pay attention to the weather forecast and use that as a guide.
Yeah.
And and the other thing that you can be doing, if it's for things that can't be planted outside right away, is starting things inside
Right.
under lights. It's starting to be into that window where we can start doing tomatoes and eggplant and
Yep.
tomatillos and peppers and all
Yeah.
those things that need a really long season. You can start to do those under grow lights.
Yep.
So that's.
And by the way, it's like it's April 12th, I think, so it's sort of mid-April here now, and this is
Right.
about mid-April, second to third week of April. It's
Mhm.
probably about the right time to
Yeah.
start thinking about tomatoes in particular, because those are a favorite thing, I think, for people to start inside,
Yeah.
for us especially.
You can jumpstart your compost pile and turn it and kind of wake it up.
Yeah.
I think that's always a good thing if you can.
Jill's being very cagey about this, because in her mind, she is the compost aficionado, and in her mind she's thinking that's about 6 videos that would answer that question that you just asked about compost and what to do. So that's why she's you can see the gears.
Well, my compost pile, I turned it this week and it's already up to 90 degrees.
She has a compost thermometer.
So
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
that's that. But I think, you know, they say April is the cruelest month, but you know, on a day like this,
April is the magic month.
yeah,
It's the month where you can do just about anything. And speaking of other things you can do in April, magic month,
magic month.
do
Sorry.
another job you can do in April. As soon as the soil can be worked, it's a little wet today, but I will be doing this later in the week, is think about plants that need to be dug up and moved or divided. It's
Right.
April is, particularly the second half of April, is sort of this magic time where it's really hard to kill a plant. It's like you can move things, and
Yeah.
and they have a really good odds on surviving it because they have just started to
Yeah,
grow.
they're just coming out of dormancy.
So I've got a shrub that I know is in the wrong place, and I'm going to be moving that.
Okay.
And I've got a bunch of plants that I'm going to be digging and giving to friends. So this is
Digging and dividing.
This is the time to do it.
And I when I think of that, of dividing, I think especially of things like, you know, like some perennial herbs like chives, for example, garlic chives. I also think of perennials, like daylilies. Often you divide them in the fall, but you can certainly divide them in the spring. And you'll start to see, and maybe, you know, we mentioned in a video last fall, or even summer, to start making mental notes about things that you want to move. And sometimes maybe, you know, a plant will have outgrown its space, and so you want to divide it into several pieces and give them away,
Or
move
in my
them.
case, I've got plants that have seeded, and they're
Yeah.
too tall in the front of the border to be in
Right.
front. So as you're kind of clearing away and you're doing tidying, you've got plenty of time to kind of be thinking about, like, oh, you do not belong there, and
Right.
you know, so start as you're tidying up, making this mental notes about what needs to be dug up, because it's so much easier to dig it up now than when it starts to get tall. I mean, if it's
Yeah.
1 inch tall, it's
Yeah.
you're just dealing with a root ball, and you're not worrying about breaking stones. So this
And
is the time
I
to do
also love how you address the plant as you. So I think this is also a good time to forge the relationships that you're going to be having with your perennials in particular.
Sure.
You look at you look beautiful. Look at, wow, you're
Oh.
just so healthy and happy, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that kind of, you know, relationship building is also something you can do in April.
Absolutely.
So to determine if the soil is ready to be worked in the spring, and remember what we're trying to figure out is if it is dry enough and warm enough. You do a squeeze test, and you just take a handful of soil in your hand and you give it a squeeze. And this is right on the cusp. If it holds together like this in a big wet ball, it's too early to work it. You risk compacting the soil. If it crumbles, and this is just about there, this is from Jill's raised beds, then the soil is ready to be worked. And frankly, this, I can feel it. It does feel pretty warm. So I would say she can get started working the soil here. So guys, thanks again for joining us here at New Digs in Jill's garden. And it is mid-April. Spring is here.
Spring is here. It's supposed to be very nice and warm this week, and
Yeah.
so we're gonna get out there and get some stuff done, and I hope you guys can go out and get some stuff done too.
Yeah, things are going to move quickly from here on out. So you better start doing some gardening exercises so you're ready to get out there and dig. So thanks again for joining us on New Digs, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.